Welcome back, everyone. In this lecture, we're going to continue our discussion on Matplotlib styling, and now we're going to focus on more visual styling, things like line styles, line widths, markers, colors, etc. So let's head over to a Jupyter Notebook and continue on. Okay, here I am at the Jupyter Notebook. For all of these series of plots we're going to be doing, I'm just going to use the same X array and just plot X versus X or some variation off that. So let's start by actually just creating a simple figure. I'm going to say fig is equal to plt.figure. Then we'll add a set of axes to it. So I'll say ax is equal to fig.add underscore axes, and then we'll just have it be the entire figure. So we'll say 0, 0, 1, 1, and then I'm going to plot, for example, x versus x to get a straight line. Now, as we already know, I can do things on a figure or axes level, such as add titles, add labels, change x and y limits, and so on. But what we haven't learned yet is how to change default colors or change line styles. So let's start focusing on each of those properties. So the first one we're going to focus on are colors, and I suggest just using the keyword color for this. And there's many different types of strings you can pass here. For very basic colors, you can actually just literally type out the color name, like blue, and it will return back that color. You can even do things like light blue and return a lighter blue. But realistically, you may want to do your own custom color that is not going to be a standard string color like purple. So what can we do? Well, we can pass in what's known as an RGB hex code. And it's basically a formula for how much of red, green, and blue go inside a color. So go ahead and Google search hex color picker. So you should be able to, let me zoom in here for you, Google search hex color picker into Google, and you can pick on any one of these sites, but Google should immediately give you something that looks like this. And here you can customize what actual combinations of red, green, and blue you want to get any color you want. So let's go ahead and maybe choose kind of a nice purple color, maybe make it a little darker, and eventually you'll get out this hex code, which will be a pound or hashtag sign, and then 3 either letters or numbers. So then go ahead and copy that, and you can pass that in here, and then run this, and now you get back your own custom color. So let's go ahead and try that one more time, just to make it more obvious what's happening. Let's choose maybe this yellow color. We'll copy and paste this hex code, paste it in here, and then Matplotlib has no problems with that. It is more flexible than just string color codes and hex codes. It can actually take in raw RGB value counts, but for our use cases, either typing in a color like purple or blue or any basic color, or if we really want a custom color, just typing in the hex code should be enough for us. Okay, so we now know that we can add in onto any .plot call a color. So I could take the same axes and plot, for example, x by x plus 1, and then set this to another color like purple. And then this allows me to distinguish what's actually happening here. And as you may have guessed, then, as we know, I can already add labels like x versus x, and then label this x versus, whoops, make sure this is a string, x versus x plus 1, and then simply call legend on this, and then it'll report back which color goes with whatever string label I want. So now that we know how to customize our colors for various plots, let's go ahead and remove these labels and legends and move on to another property, which could be the line and marker styles. So the first one we're going to cover are line width, and there's 2 ways of defining this. The short way is with LW. Note that's not a 1, it's an L. So you can say line width LW, and then set this equal to essentially kind of a ratio here. So if you set 1, that's essentially the default value. So then if you set to something like 10, it's going to be 10 times the thickness of the default value. So obviously now we can experiment with this. And another parameter you can do for the same effect is actually typing out line width fully and then choosing some ratio here. Okay, so you can also do, if you wanted, for instance, half of default thickness, say 0.5, and it'll be a little thinner. If you get too thin, it basically won't show up, but you get the idea. You can either do LW for short or line width. So now that we know how to do the line width as well as the color, let's talk about line styles. There's many different line styles to choose from, and in our actual notebook, we give you a list of the possible options as a comment here. So there's many possible options, and you can actually easily explore this in the documentation. I do want to note that our lecture notebook is going to show you a bunch of examples. So if you're actually working through our lecture notebook, we'll give you many examples on every single thing we discuss. But let's first talk about line styles here. There are the basic ones, like just a dash line, and you can either say ls is equal to one of these string codes, like a dashed line, and now you can see this line is dashed because of this line style code. Or if you want, you can also type in the full phrase line style and then choose another style. Maybe you want a dash and a dot. Let's make this a little thicker so we can see the actual effect. And now you can see you have a line and a dot, a line and a dot. So you have these possible line style options, dashes, longer dashes. You can also say colon if you want, which essentially just looks, like a bunch of little dashes or dots, etc. Or what you can also do is do a custom line style dash. Now this won't happen too often where you want to create your own custom styling, but it is possible. And the way this works is with the set_dashes command. I'm just going to quickly show you it. It's a little complicated since it's unusual to have to set a custom dash code, but if none of these options work for you, it is possible. So let's first just comment out one of these, and we're just going to do this on this line right here. And what I'm going to do is just say remove line style. So I have this purple straight line, and then I'm going to say lines equal to x.plot. And then what we need to do is if we actually check out what lines is, it's a list. And it's essentially a list of all the line objects. And in this case, we only have one line here. And it's going to be that way for every single dot plot since it's just plotting a singular line. So we need to say lines 0 in order to grab this 2D line object from this list. And then we call dot set underscore dashes. And then the way this works is you pass in a list that corresponds with your custom dash sequence. And so I'm going to type in some numbers here. They won't make sense at first, but we're later going to be able to edit this so that we can see what's actually happening. So I just passed in 2 pairs or 3 pairs of numbers. They have to come in pairs like this. And we can see I've created some sort of custom line dash. So the way this works is you essentially say how many points you want and then how many points you want spaced after it. So I can say I want 5 solid points, then 2 blank points, and then 10 solid points, and then 2 blank points. So what this should be is essentially a line, a little dash, an empty space, another dash that's twice the length of this dash, and then 2 empty spaces repeated. And so that's what we can see here. We see a short dash, which is 5 points, 2 points of white space, and then 10 points filled in again for that dash, 2 points of white space, and so on. So then if we wanted, for instance, similar length dashes, this would be 5 points of a dash, 2 white spaces, 5 points of a dash, 2 white spaces. So it makes sense that these would then come in pairs. So if you want just a bunch of little dots at first, and then maybe one really long dash, you could do the following. So what is this doing? It's saying 1 point and then 2 white spaces. 1 point, 2 white spaces. Then 10 points as the dash, this long line, and then 2 white spaces. Again, not super common to have to actually call set dashes yourself. Usually one of these line style options is more than enough, but keep in mind it is available to you if you really like to customize your plot. So let's move away now from lines and talk about markers. I'm going to remove this lines call and then just have this plot here. So I keep mentioning that this is actually not truly a continuous line. In fact, if we look at what we're actually plotting, x, in reality, it's just some points here. It's 0.0, 1.2, 2.4, and so on. So let's imagine that I actually wanted to plot each of those points that's actually occurring here. What I do then is I say marker is equal to, and then there are string codes for the marker type. So for instance, I could say marker, pass in a lowercase o, run that, and then I will see a little marker here. And in fact, if I make my line width a little less thick, I can see those marker points. And then I could combine this with ls, or align style, and then make it like a dashed line between those points. So then I can see the actual points I'm plotting, and then a dashed line saying the relationship between those points. So then the question arrives is, how do I know what string code to pass in to marker? Well, you can check out the link we have for you in the documentation, or just Google search Matplotlib markers API, and it should take you to this page right here, where it shows you the marker string code, the symbol of what it looks like, and then a description, whether it's a circle, a triangle, etc. So as you can imagine, there are a ton of different markers available to you. So here are all the markers, and there's a full discussion on markers, etc. But main idea is that if you want a triangle, either up, down, left, right, they're all available to you, as well as different things like pluses and stars and so on. Okay, so let's go ahead and try this for one more line. Let's go ahead and make one of these maybe a plus sign, run that, and in order to see this, I have to say one of these should be x by x. There we go, now I see the two lines. And so this plus looks a little small. We can edit the marker size by saying ms or typing in full marker size. So here I could say marker size. Let's make one of these red so it's really clear which one's which. So I have color red, it's x by x plus 1. Line width is 2, this marker is plus, so it's actually this line here above. And I'm going to say marker size, and again it's kind of a ratio here, so if we say 20, it's going to be essentially 20 times larger. And we can see here now those pluses. Okay, so now I know how I can choose my marker as well as my marker size. I could also say ms for short and expand this, so I could say 10 here and make those dots larger. And then the last thing we're going to point out here is, technically speaking, these markers are actually containing an edge and a center to them. So if I wanted to make them a little thicker, I could actually edit the marker edge width, as well as the marker edge color and marker face color. Now this is a very high level of customization that we won't really be doing in the course, but it is available to you. So let's imagine, for instance, let's just take one of these. On this purple line, let's say I want to keep editing these markers. What I can do is add in 3 more parameter calls. There is marker face color. That's going to take in a string color code. There is marker edge width, and that can take in some numeric code. And then there is marker edge color, and that takes in some string code. So let's make it really obvious what's happening here. I'm going to say the marker edge color is orange, and I'm going to make it quite wide, like 8. And then let's make the marker face color red. So if we run this, we can see here I have a really thick marker edge width, which is this orange width. And I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but there's a tiny little red dot there. If you want to make the dot bigger, simply make the width of the edge smaller. And eventually you can see here that we have a very customized marker. And obviously you can keep changing this to be some other marker type, like S for square. And now we have these square markers with an inner face color of red, an edge width of 4, and a marker edge color. And then I can always keep changing the marker size as well. Okay, so now you can see here I can make pretty much any sort of custom visualization I want. And I would highly encourage you to check out the Matplotlib gallery. There's definitely a lot more you can do with visualization as far as custom styling than what we show here. But for the purposes of this course, we're not ever going to be doing something as dramatically styled as this. But for your own use cases, you may find it interesting to explore the gallery and then copy and paste the code from the gallery for your specific visualization needs. But at the end of the day, all you need to get out of this lecture are just these parameter calls. The fact that you can change the color of the line, change the line width and the line style, add in specific markers and change the marker size. And if you really want, you can change the marker face color, edge width, and edge color as well. Okay, that's it for this lecture. I'll see you at the next one.